Hello and welcome to Crimson Guitars. This is a weekend workshop takeover where I utilise Ben's workshop for the weekend and look after his pets at the same time, which is great. I will probably get distracted by all the cool stuff that's like everywhere. I mean, I keep on like looking at the books and picking things out that I want to read, like all the planes, and it's very cool. So this guitar that I'm going to be working on today is by far my favourite guitar in the whole of Crimson. We have a lot of awesome stuff coming through. Nothing ever beats this guitar, for me. You probably already know what it is actually, probably by the thumbnail, but also probably because of my excitement. This is the second Louis Panormo guitar that Ben has got for Crimson, made in 1830. It's everything you want in a Parlour guitar. It's got your lamp black neck, classic V-join, all shellac finish, spruce top. It's actually got a slight radius on the fingerboard as well, which is, it's not that it's uncommon on Louis Panormos, it's just not all of them have them. Your ivory strap buttons, which are original, and well, look at it, it's just gorgeous. It's just lovely. It would be awesome to take measurements and make a technical drawing of this one day and try and replicate it, because I love it. Why not? So this instrument has actually been restored previously, really nicely actually. It's been restored really well. The person who restored this hasn't done anything like intrusive to it, you know. There isn't anything that you immediately look at on this guitar and go, oh god, yeah, that's been repaired. You know, that happens a lot. We get in a lot of guitars at Crimson which you can see that someone's tried to repair it and it is kind of horrific sometimes, but this, you know, this is in great condition, especially seeing as it's from like literally made in the 1830s. It's nuts. So this area here is what I am going to be focusing on in this video. It's kind of, well, it's part of the bridge but also part of the saddle, because they are one and the same in this instance. First thing first, I think I'm going to take off the strings and get a better look at it without the pins in and with the strings off. These pins don't look original, I don't think, but that doesn't bother me. The guitar is original. This does look like it's been repaired before. That looks like, this kind of white stuff looks like old glue to me. Yeah, that looks like some old glue from a previous repair. Maybe the contact on the piece wasn't great and just over time it's just come apart. My plan with this is to go in with a chisel, remove the excess glue off of that surface and also flatten out that area as much as possible. Even though that will mean taking more material off of the bridge, as long as it's done minimally and in a controlled way, it will be absolutely fine. It is definitely scary working, you know, with a sharp tool on a super old instrument, especially on the soundboard, like near the soundboard, because that is very delicate. However, I do want this surface where the breakage has happened to be as flat as possible, so that when I make the piece which will fit into it, I just have to make sure that that piece is perfectly flat, and that means that they will have a good connection, a good join, and hopefully the piece won't break off ever again. So yeah, I'm gonna sharpen my chisel because that, well, it's ebony, you need it to be sharp, but also, you know, sharp tools equals more control. So let's get do it. Let's get do it. These stones are really good. if you don't have a lot of space in your workshop for a massive water tub for your stones, because they do have the compartments at the bottom so that whilst you're sharpening one side, the other side is submerged. The only thing I will say is when you first put them in the water, they do soak up a lot, so you definitely need to refill. But they seem to be doing a nice job. These are also available at the Crimson shop. And we have a good range of grits. We have 280, 1500, and then on this one 1000 and 6000, which is awesome. That is pretty much all you need, really. You know, if you want to go the extra mile, you can get some super fine stuff, but this definitely does the job. Now, I don't want this to turn into a sharpening how-to video necessarily, but if you guys would like a sharpening video, hand sharpening video, let us know in the comments and we will do one. I'm sure Ben has done a fair few videos on sharpening. However, these are stones that we've recently got in stock, so if you'd like to know more about them, let us know. Can be arranged. So this is just an offcut off of a fingerboard. Lovely bit of ebony. Just going to be trimming that down so that there isn't so much to plane. So essentially this this surface that I'm planing now, that is going to be the surface which joins to the bridge. So that's why I'm making sure it is as flat as possible. Nice. Absolutely not a tiny, not even the tiniest bit of light is coming through that now. Amazing. And I love the surface finish that like planes leave. Always the best. And in my opinion, the best for gluing as well, rather than sandpaper. But, as Ben would say, fight me in the comments. I always prefer doing joins with plain surfaces rather than sanded. It's a very weird glue. It almost seems too chippy and brittle to be wood glue, like normal white glue, but probably is. It's not how white glue usually sounds when it comes off, really. There's a bit of tear out of some sort on the top there, which is why I'm actually taking more off than I thought. It's just that little top bit there. So taking that down, trying to take long straight strokes and then sort of matching that up with the rest of the surface to make that flat and not sort of curved, again just for the sake of making a piece that will be easier to join in to this section. And really you're kind of using the chisel almost like a little bit of a plane. It's kind of, you just make sure that it's flat on that surface and it will just take off sort of just all of the high spots, really. Of course, that the beginning of the cut is always the kicker. That's always the difficult bit. And in this case you can really see how the sharpening makes a massive difference, because sometimes all you're taking off is just tiny little feather shavings, you know, and you don't want to be taking off massive chunks. The protection seems to be getting in the way, so I'm just going to take that off and be scared. And at this point, it's kind of just like almost dust coming off, which is great because that's when you know it's getting a lot flatter. I'm not putting much pressure, just like letting the base of the chisel just skate along. So I'm pretty happy so far. There is actually, you can see this sort of tear out that was there previously on that bottom surface, and unless I get rid of that, that's going to show up. So I'm actually going to take this cut down a little bit. Right. I've had to take so many deep breaths doing this. Things always sound scarier when you're working on an acoustic instrument as well, because it's always a lot louder. Definitely regretting the 2.5 mugs of coffee I had this morning. Making my hands a little bit less stable than usual, but what can you do? More blade care. I'm just going to quickly strop my chisel. I was just noticing that there were some little ridges in the ebony where I'd cut, only like 3, but I just thought I'd refresh the edge. Just some Autosol and leather. I usually use a scrap bit of MDF because it's always pretty flat, but here I have a scrap piece of leather, or at least I hope it's a scrap piece of leather. If not, I'm sorry, Ben. I've just cut up a bit of leather. Also, something worth mentioning, you never ever want to strop the flat side of a blade, ever. Because stropping does round over the edge of it, or a lot, actually, if you were to look at it under a microscope or something. Right, so I'm just checking the flatness, and it's pretty good lengthways, but it does seem to have a slight bit of a rounded profile to it this way. So I'm just going in with the chisel again. It's almost like if you are doing such small cuts like this, you just think about the middle and it ends up cutting there. You know what I mean? Because it's such a tiny little cut. Here is the final shape. It looks a bit crazy. It's, you know, you got to make it worse so it can get better, I guess. But that is the final shape. You can see I've squared out that edge and I've made this surface as flat as I can get it. So now to make a piece which fits that, and actually, because this is nice and flat, that surface isn't really going to be a problem. The difficulty with this is now matching this whole shape up. One of the ways I could go about it is to put on an oversized piece and then carve it in once it's glued, but we will see what happens. I'm fairly happy with that though. The chisel's definitely done a good job. Right, so that looks a bit crazy, but it's just a rough It's just a rough floor plan. Remember earlier on in the video where I planed a bit of this ebony flat and said that that was going to be my joining surface onto the bridge? Scrap that. I just realised that that's not the best way to do it. Now, because the joining surface is at an angle, if I were to join this to that angle, the grain direction is not going to be going the same way as the grain direction in the bridge. Longitudinally, long ways it will be, but not in terms of like the grain lines. So basically what I'm actually going to do is plane that angle and take that edge off and make that the flat surface so it can slot in like that rather than being put in at an angle. I mean, it just makes more sense to me, really. Oh, I love these shavings, they're so cute. Phase 1 of fitting a piece has been completed. I'm very happy with the fit. You can see what I mean about the grain direction now, right? It just makes more sense. So we've just basically got one flat edge here and another on the end. That was quite difficult to get actually, that edge flat, but they meet up and there is absolutely no light coming through when I look down here or in between there, which is exactly what we want. So the next steps will be trimming this all down so that I don't have to carve that much off when it's on the guitar, basically. Because of the angle of the join and because of the fact that it is on the soundboard, I can't really clamp it. I can't really glue the piece on using clamps. That would have to be an awfully specific clamp. So I just am going to hold it for 5-10 minutes, basically as long as I physically can, without moving it, and leave that overnight. So the piece has been left to dry overnight and I think it's looking pretty good. Nothing seems to have moved. There's no reason why anything should move, but it looks pretty nice and I'm really excited about how this is going to come out. So at this point I'm just carving down the excess again with the chisel, trying to keep everything nice and straight, basically. Straight, flat, get that curve in there. Yeah, and every time I feel the chisel getting a little bit, not blunt, just, you know, when you feel that it needs to be refreshed a bit, I'm going to be stropping it. And for this kind of work, it's definitely worth just making sure your tools are always sharp. Let's get to it. So at this point, I'm just going through the grits. As usual, a classic. I want to basically get this to the point where it can be polished, because it's, you know, ebony is such a dense wood that I'm fairly sure that this bridge doesn't have any finish on it, and it is just really finely sanded or finished, basically, and then you can just, I will get a bit of Autosol, more Autosol to like buff it, basically. But in order for that shine to come through nicely, or even at all, you can't have any scratches in this. Or if you do have scratches, they're going to show up. So now, for the moment of truth. Will it work? Well, I know it's worked at this point. I just don't know if I've sanded enough, but we will see. Because if I haven't sanded enough, then it won't buff up very nicely. Let's have a look. I love Autosol. Absolutely love it. I think that a perfume has to be made that just smells like Autosol, because I would definitely get that. Sand that a little bit finer, actually. So in we go. So I'm just going in with 2000 grit at this point. It's not quite shining up how I wanted it to, so I'm going to take it a little bit finer. Could do with a little more, never hurts. Well, actually the only time Autosol or like polishing compounds hurt is when they get in the grain, especially with dark woods like this, you know, your rosewoods and ebonies and all the rest of it. It can be a real pain, but because this is handmade and because it is so old, there is also white stuff, you know, muck or whatever in the grain. So this is the repair, and it's always interesting doing repairs on handmade old things, because they do have inconsistencies in terms of, you know, their shape. And with this, I've just tried to match the shape the best to this side, because this side is actually quite different. But yeah, that's that. I think that should work nicely. So while we're at it, whilst the strings are off, I'm just gonna do a little bit of a clean up on the fingerboard and frets. And these are lovely little brass bar frets. So they'll come up really nicely with the Autosol. I love Autosol. Can't get enough of it. It's an Autosol kind of weekend. I think I'm going to put a bit of the oil on the bridge as well. I think that would help him nourish. Maybe also bring out the darkness a little bit more. So it is now time to put on the strings, finally. And what I've chosen here are these, they're Nile gut strings. So they're meant to sort of sound more like original gut strings, which is what this instrument would have had when it was made, without the cons of having gut strings. They go out of tune a lot. There are also problems with intonation, and also they're expensive and you have to change them a lot more frequently. I've actually put some of these on a guitar I made, and I love them. These ones are specifically the low tension set. We don't want to be putting a crazy amount of tension on this because we want to preserve it as best as we can. So yeah, low tension Nile gut. I put a bit of oil on the machine head cog because it's really creaky and it's kind of scaring me. I think I'm going to go standard tuning, just a semitone lower than usual, because I'm scared. I just don't want to do anything I shouldn't. It sounds lovely, but it's just not in tune. So that is it. The bridge / saddle repair has been done. I'm very happy with how it's gone, and it's playing very nicely. Still out of tune. It's going to be going out of tune for at least like the next sort of day or so. If you'd like to see this guitar, for yourself, you can visit the Dorset Guitar Museum. It will be opening soon. Not quite sure when, but soon. If you'd like to see more content like this, please let us know in the comments below. I love this sort of stuff. It's why I love guitars. This is why I love guitars. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe, and have a lovely day, guys.